There seems to be an easier if you go straight to a custom service. And I can show people how to do that with just Facebook if you'd like to. Okay, we are live for this event, which really what I was hoping to share is just some more best practices and hoping that other people have come up with best practices as well to share. There, I see 8 people who are attendees. I'm going to turn you all into panelists so you can show yourself if you'd like. If it'll show, there we go. So there are 2 main things that I want to accomplish. I want to talk about best practices when it comes to audio quality, particularly with instrumental audio. And I know for those of you who have been in some of the other webinars that I've done on this before, we've covered that, but I continue to sort of evolve best practices here. And I want to talk about how to make text show up live on top of your video. I've been using it as sort of during Tefillah as the visual siddur. Any questions about that or anything else that people want to make sure we cover today? Again, feel free to drop things in the chat or unmute yourself and talk. Okay, so let's start by talking about audio for a second. Cookie wants to know, can you get access to your prior sessions on sound quality? Yeah, but I'm going to cover best practices now, so you should ignore the previous ones anyways. So don't worry about them, is what I would say. Okay, so there are 3 pieces I want us to think about when it comes to sound quality in general. There is our microphone, makes a big difference. There is our software encoder. What that is the what software or hardware is turning the raw sound and video into streamable content. Does that make sense for sending out to the rest of the world? And generally, by the way, the answer to that is you're asking something between your browser and Facebook to do it, which is why you're running into audio quality. That's a big issue there. So, and then the third is where you're actually streaming it. They can have control over these things as well. So that makes a difference. So in Zoom, you can control the software encoding just a little bit. And the way you do that is you need to be able to enable original sound. So you do that if you can do that on your own. In fact, everyone should do this right now. Within Zoom, move your mouse around and down where it says mute, with the little picture of a microphone, if you click on the arrow next to mute and you click on audio settings, sorry, it won't let me screen share Zoom to you, or I would. Click on audio settings, it should be clicked on audio on the left. In the bottom right corner, you'll see the button advanced. You want to click on that and then click show in meeting option to enable original sound from microphone. You want to enable that. Okay, so I just want to show the difference between all of these options that we can control. Because the things we can control in Zoom are original sound or not original sound, and what microphone we are choosing. So I'm going to show the impact of both of those. Let me just grab a guitar. You'll notice when you play instrumental music on the streaming, often it gets this weird like phasey quality where you'll either hear the voice or the guitar gets this sort of fake kind of quality to it. Same thing often happens even worse with keyboard. So I'm just going to play something. Right now I'm using, let me verify that this is the case. Okay, right now I'm just using my webcam and I have all Zoom set to regular settings. I have not turned on original sound. So my guess is you'll hear the problems, and then we're going to go through the various settings so that you can hear the advantages of each of them. Okay, did it get that weird phasey thing? Did that come through where it was sort of going? Okay, a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to turn on original sound. Again, still using just the webcam microphone. So this should be better. Hopefully will help with some of the phasey quality. but is not going to be as good as using a microphone. Just a note on turning on original sound, you want to turn it on when you do music, and you want to turn it off when you are speaking, because regular Zoom, meaning not original sound, is doing all sorts of noise canceling and picking up on your voice and making sure that that's coming through clearest and so on and so forth. So you want that on normally. You only want original sound for music. Okay, so here's original sound. Okay, probably a little better, yeah? Maybe, not noticeable. Big change comes when we switch from using the Zoom microphone or the camera to an actual microphone. You can do this two different ways. You can get yourself a USB microphone. That's probably the sort of most straightforward way of doing it. Oop, I have original sound still on. Hopefully my voice sounds a little better now. I just turned it off. So you can get a USB microphone. I recommend the Blue brand. They're kind of hard to find right now, but I've used the Blue Snowball for years. Or if you already have regular microphones or access to regular microphones, which many of us have, what you want to get is something like this, which is a USB audio interface, a digital analog converter interface. I use the Focusrite. It's well regarded, Focusrite. I use the 2i2, about $100, and will let you plug in to either XLR, meaning microphone style cables, or hold on, I'm moving someone to panelist, or it'll let you plug in a guitar or a keyboard or anything else. So really flexible. I am going to go ahead and switch over to that, and you can hear the difference there. Okay, and it's important to set your gain levels, right? That's the knob on here. I don't know if people can hear. I'll show it on here. You can see that as I'm talking, it flashes green to yellow. You should have something like this if you're using an audio interface, and you want it to flash onto yellow pretty regularly. You don't want it just on green. I've actually found when doing music on Zoom, you want to overdrive it a little bit so it even goes up to red, which means it's clipping, but it seems better than otherwise. Okay, let's verify that we've got this set right. Yep, that's what's happening. I'm going to turn on original sound, and now my guess is it should just. Okay, am I correct that it sounded much better this time? Okay, so again, just like a demonstration, yeah, it was Focusrite 2i2 is the model that I have, Michael. But there's all sorts of different models, and the only difference is what sorts of inputs they have. Actually, for many people, the Focusrite Solo probably is enough, but I think it's probably worth it to spend the extra $20 and get the 2i2. Just has to do with the number of inputs. Okay, I am going to turn off this audio interface, move back to the webcam microphone so I can move all this out of the way. Okay, any questions about audio before we start talking about how to put text on top?
How do you actually turn original sound on? You said in the settings you can make it available, but is there an on-off switch?
Yeah, sorry, I'm putting in my speakers right now. Okay, headset, yes. Will someone say something again so I can see if I can hear you?
Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Can
almost.
you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you now. Thank you.
How do you turn original sound on? You showed where to make it available in the settings. Is there an on-off switch?
Yes. So move your mouse around, and you should see it in the upper left.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And now I have
Larry. Okay, yeah, Daniel Plotkin says this is important. Most of these settings that we're talking about are not available on Chromebooks or on iOS devices. You need to be using a Windows or a Mac device to really get most of these things. Yeah. Raquel asks for a list of things. I'll write those in the edge. Blue snowball mic or focus right 2i2. When I leave my services, my wife's Windows laptop isn't available. Yeah. Unfortunately, you just sort of need it. Okay, other questions about sound? Larry asks about turning it on and off. If you have your own USB interface, you do still need to turn on original sound when you do music. Because if you don't, what that means is that Zoom is processing your audio signal, and you don't want it to do that. What we're asking is for Zoom not to process our audio signal and to let us process the audio signal when it's music. And when you're speaking, you want Zoom to process it. If that makes sense. Okay, any other questions on sound? Do you turn original sound off for speaking? Yes, you turn original sound off for speaking and on for music. I know it's like the way that they phrase it is weird. Okay, no more sound questions before we start talking. If we have multiple clergy leading from multiple homes, do they each need to enable original sound, or is the great question. So with Zoom, there's not one. Focusrite's not available on Amazon. Snowball is available for end of May. Check out reverb.com for these things. And you can, it doesn't have to be Focusrite. There's lots of different ones. And for the uses we're using, anything around that price range, just look at something that's got reasonable reviews and you're fine. You probably want 2 inputs. Yeah. Beyond that, it doesn't matter. And don't worry about the generation of the Focusrite you're getting. For the way that most of us are going to use it, it's not going to make a difference. Yeah. Okay, so we had a question about original sound. If it matters that everyone has to do it. Yes, if you're doing it with multiple people in multiple locations, everyone needs to turn on original sound when they themselves are doing music, because that processing is happening at the local computer level, or somewhere between the local computer and Zoom server. Audrey has a note about another USB mic. There's lots of USB mics out there. I don't recommend Blue because they're light years ahead of everyone else. I recommend Blue because that's what I have owned for years. There's lots of good ones out there. There's no reason not to use something else and whatever is available. Yeah, what you're really looking for with the mic probably is you're looking for a large diaphragm condenser mic. I can't spell anything. Condenser mic. Thank you, Google, for changing that. Even if original sound is on original sound, still everyone cannot sing at the same time. Right, yes, you cannot sing at the same time. There's no solution to that right now. You can make those videos that are recorded at different times that you paste together, but you can't make music at the same time. Yeah. Sweetwater.com, Audrey says, is another place to get mics. Absolutely. Reverb has used stuff, so it tends to be a little cheaper and a different market for when things are sold out. Okay, any other last sound questions before we start talking about how to put things over? Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen with you now. Okay, so this is an app or a program called OBS. Quick, hold on, let me figure out a way that I can see more of you at once. Okay, quick show of hands. Who has played with OBS? Who has? Great. Who has never touched OBS? Most people have never touched OBS. Okay. So we're going to go with that as the assumption. Okay, so OBS, let me talk conceptually about this for a moment. Before I talked about the steps that we can control in this process, right? We can control the microphone, for sound, and then we can control the software encoder. And the software encoder is incredibly important for streaming video in terms of the quality and changing things. So what OBS is a software encoder for our computers that also is a studio program that will let us sort of run it like a studio might for the news. In fact, OBS is open source and used by a huge number of people in a huge number of different ways. So let me just give you a sense. I'm using the webcam I normally use. So let me change this so it shows the webcam on the computer itself. Sometimes it's less than cooperative. Also something about OBS. There we go. Okay. So sorry, you're going to see the side of this because this is the one that's actually on my laptop and I'm on a thing that's plugged in. Okay. So this is OBS right here. Conceptually, what we're doing is we are looking at scenes over here. And scenes you can think of as the various, sorry, it's not set up for this particular camera, which is why it's causing issues here. Scenes are set up for each individual thing that you're going to do. So we're counting the Omer, all the rabbis at CRC every night at 8:30. So I have this set up that first it shows just sort of a logo, and then I can jump to something like this where it says counting the Omer, right? And I set this up with me in the middle, and you set up all of it. By the way, this is a light ring. If people haven't seen those that you're seeing right here, you can drop a webcam into it. I'm using that webcam right now, which is why. Just provides better lighting. Okay, so you set up these scenes and you have these text box, right? And this is a box right here, and all these things can just be dragged around. Those are what they call sources, and the sources list goes right here. Now, sources need to be every single thing that you are using. So one source here is the camera, right? If I go ahead and delete that source, the camera disappears, right? One source here is input 2. That's the audio input that I'm feeding to it. That's going to come from here, but nothing's plugged into it right now, so it's not getting that feed. One source is the CRC logo, right? I can delete all of these things and they go away or come back. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to take the webcam. I'm going to copy it from a different scene. And where did I delete this? From here. And I'm going to paste it into this scene. And now we have it back. Now you'll notice now it's on top of everything because this order is the order of stacking. So I move the webcam to the bottom and these things go on top of it. Okay. Here we get our audio mixer that shows all of the audio inputs that we are getting. And finally, we get our controls over here for start streaming, start recording. You can just record with this as well. And here I built in a chat for restream. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second because this is a lot before we talk more and just get some questions. Yes. I have no solutions on the night ring, Batsheva. I also ran into issues in the last time I used it, the light ring and dealing with reflections. Yeah, sorry. Okay, questions on OBS so far? Dealing with it conceptually, dealing with it how I just showed it, the idea of scenes and sources. Nothing? All makes sense? Straightforward?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi. First of all, so I just joined this call because I
don't know if other people can hear you. You froze for me. You're freezing in and out.
Oh, you're freezing on me too. It's my
Oh.
internet, even though I'm on a high speed.
We can hear you now. Try again.
Oh, did you hear the part about how I came on this call just to see you?
Oh no, it's good to see you.
No, I want to learn from you too, and I get to see all these other precious people. But I was just saying,
Nope, we lost you again. Sorry. Okay, we'll come back in a minute. How do you connect a standard HDMI camera and/or RTMP
okay,
into
I'll
Inbox?
write it in the thing.
Cool. Daniel Weber, I have no idea. I've never done any of those things. I'm sure it's doable, but I have no idea. I've never done those. Heath wants to know, how do you patch OBS into Zoom? I don't believe you can. Like, I think the closest you could do is a screen share, and then you go to studio. We can try it. We'll try it at the end of this call. I've never actually done it, but we'll try. If you remind me. Any other questions so far on OBS? Does this make sense? Okay, so I'm going to share this one more time, and I'm just going to take you through the creation of a new scene.
Oh,
And
Daniel.
Yeah.
Sorry. So then, if you can't patch OBS into Zoom, do you just then send people? You can use OBS as its own streaming platform, or
OBS
or is it only for pre-recorded stuff that you're sending out?
Great question. So you can send OBS to, it's a streaming platform. It's a software encoder technically. So you can send OBS wherever you want. You can send it to Facebook, you can send it to YouTube, you can send it, we send it to Restream, which then sends it on to all of those places. And the advantage of OBS is that Facebook Live is awful quality encoder. The video quality is rough, the audio quality is rough, right? Like, so even if you're not going to do any of the stuff where you're putting text on top and doing the more advanced stuff, which is not that hard, really, we're going to build it in a second, OBS is still going to immediately improve your quality. And if you are doing those things, it's just infinitely sort of flexible for you. Did that answer your question? I see 4 new notes.
Yes, thank you.
In the Zoom question, screen sharing. Yeah, we'll try that. We use StreamSpot. I'm confused about how to incorporate OBS to lay the words over. Is that something that happens live or pre-recorded? Great. Okay, so that's the core question. And Rachel says, Blue Jeans seems better than Zoom. I've never touched Blue Jeans. I'm all for trying new things, though, yeah. StreamSpot is effectively the same thing as what I'm talking about when I say Restream, which is a service that you pay, that you send your live streamed content to, and they do things with, whether they're storing it locally so that people can go to it whenever they want, or whether they're sending it onto Facebook or whatever they're doing there. That's what StreamSpot is. So OBS is a software encoder made for live, mostly made for live streaming, where you're sending it to StreamSpot. Does that make sense, Alyssa? So yeah, OBS is what you run on the computer where you're live streaming. StreamSpot is the service you're paying that sends it to be able to be viewed on the internet. Okay. Okay. I am going to go back to OBS then, and I'm going to create a scene from scratch. And then after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through OBS and I'm going to go through all of the settings on OBS, and they're a little technical. And that's the one part of OBS that's not straightforward. And I'm happy to help you one-on-one if you run into trouble. But I'm going to walk you through the thinking on them because most of them are pretty easy. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay. Welcome back to OBS. So we're going to go ahead and create a scene from scratch. So I'm actually going to create a new scene collection. I'm doing Shabbat morning. Tomorrow morning, it'll be the first time I've done Shabbat morning since I switched to OBS, meaning the first time that I'm going to put text on the screen. So I'm going to create a scene collection here. As you can see, there is nothing. We've just got a blank scene. We've got a blank sources. We've got a blank audio mixer. So I'm going to start with this first scene. This first one that it calls scene, I like to call blank, meaning this is the one that's set up that has no overlays on the screen at all. So if that's what I wanted anytime during the stream, that's what I do. So now I'm going to start with my sources. I'm going to add all the sources that I want to this. So I'm going to start by adding a video capture device, meaning the webcam. And I'm going to call this built-in webcam. And there we go. Resolution type, we'll just leave it at device default. That's fine. Okay, you can see that it doesn't take up the space that I want it to, right? I can move it all around. I'm going to leave it in the corner, and I'm going to grab that, and we're just going to drag. I'm sure it's a 720 webcam, and I'm asking it to scale to 1080 is what's happening. That's why it's not so big. Okay, now I am going to add in audio because you can't hear anything right now. I use something called ASIO. It's because I'm using the Focusrite. Otherwise, you would just add an audio input capture. Don't worry about that. Input 2. I'm going to choose my device. Focusrite, mono, input 2. That's just where I have the microphone plugged in right now. And you can see, I'm going to tap this mic back here. Right, so you can see that that's what's going on right over here. You also are probably hearing my dogs bark right now. So now we've given it a camera, and we do not want the audio from that camera to come through. Right, I'm going to turn that off right there. It wasn't coming through anyways because it wasn't going up there. We do want the input 2 from the Focusrite, from this thing. And then we can start adding in whatever else we want. I'm probably going to add in my default one a logo also. CRC logo. I don't know if this is, yeah, great. This isn't the logo I typically use, but doesn't matter. Right, and I can drag that wherever I want. Okay, so this is going to be my default scene. Right, this is just my setup that's going to basically be the same for everything, and everything else will be a variation on this. Once that's done, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to give it the next name, and we'll call the next thing, I don't know, Modani. So now you'll notice that these two are the same. They have the same list of sources, right? Something to know is if I change a source in one, it's going to change it in the other one as well. So anything that's shared in there is going to change. So if you want it to be different, you got to add it as a new thing. Does that make sense conceptually? Just going to check and make sure there are no chats. I don't see any. Throw out questions. Oh, I do see a chat. Yep. Backwards and forwards. Nope, I don't understand at all what backwards and forwards means. Sorry. Yep. Batsheva, if you want to explain that a little more. Okay, so going back here, let's say we want to add a text. So I could add a text, and we'll call this Modani. Oh, I already have something called Modani. Example. So just first a note that, like, if I had, sometimes you'll find files, image files of the Hebrew prayer, you could absolutely do that and put it in as an image instead of as a text. Here, I'm not actually going to build it, so I'm not going to do it in Hebrew. I'll just right. Okay. Here's our text up here. So if I change the blank, I change the duplicate, but if I change the duplicate, does it change the blank? Oh, you mean over here? So these two things are not glued to each other. It's that the sources are glued to each other. So within Modani, I could move the source to a different spot and it stays in the same spot in the other one. But I think, like, for instance, if I were to mute this input in Modani, I
Ways
think
in
it
which,
stays muted over here.
and
Yeah, do you see that?
taken part of away.
Go ahead, sorry, I can hear someone talking. Whoever just said that, I didn't hear you, but if you want to say something, please do. Let me yell at my dog to be quiet, sorry.
Is that Violet?
That is Violet, yeah.
We miss Violet. My kids now want a Violet.
Yeah, you should get a Violet. Your kids deserve a Violet.
We already have a pancake.
She's pushing her way into this room. I apologize. Okay, so here's our text up here. You can see that it's totally like missized and hard to deal with, and particularly if you're dealing with a really long text, it gets just unwieldy. So what you can do, I find it easiest in the sources list, you right click on it and you can, where is it? Transform. And you want to fit to screen. And then we can transform it from there. Oop. And you got to be careful you're grabbing the right thing. And then it's just easier to move around. You can see that it will change shape and size as you ask it to. So some things that you can do to it. First of all, you go back into the text. And if you want to make it 2 lines, right? Because you want to fit it off to the side instead. And you want to, I like to put some background opacity to it, about 30%, 40%, somewhere in that range. And so you see what the background opacity does, right? Where it just makes a little, be careful what you're grabbing when you do this. Right, you can put it wherever you want. And okay, so does that make sense in terms of how to do this? Let's, I would call this a done scene. I mean, I would probably go ahead and put in the Hebrew if I was actually building it. Okay, Jay Hirsch is asking an important question. For live streaming and coding, does OBS run okay on a typical laptop, or does it need a higher end computer configuration with memory processor? If you want to stream at very high qualities, it requires a very good laptop. I bought a new laptop with my discretionary account to do this at a high quality. But I'll also take you through some of the things you can do to make it work on a slightly older laptop. Okay, so then last thing, I like a little higher of a transition, 800, let's call it 800 milliseconds. That's the transition between the scenes. So when you use it live, the way you do it is, you're doing your intro, hi, welcome everyone, good to see you, blah, 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 and now we do Modani. And you click the button and it pops up. And then you click the button for the next one and the next one. And anytime you just want to go back to this, you click on blank. Basic question, are you creating a whole service Siddur this way superimposed on one camera? Yes, that's what I'm doing. And I do them as scene collections. So here's a finished one. For instance, the camera's not going to look right. I apologize because it's built for the camera that I'm using to talk to you. So just pretend that black in the background is the camera, right? And I'm just transitioning between one to the next to the next. And so I have these set up. I set them up right before I do services. Each time I go through each of them and make sure that it's all set up for where I am going to be standing and for what the background looks like. So this right here, there's no background to it, and I've made the text itself slightly see-through. So when people are looking at it, it just kind of like fades out of the picture and you sort of have to notice it. Right, and then just during services, as I go through each thing, right? So for a long for something longer like Mizmor LeDavid on Kabbalat Shabbat, you can see I've made a number of these that I fade through. And again, I like to change this duration over here to something a little higher. I think it's a little nicer when it takes a second longer, but whatever. Okay, questions on OBS now. And the last thing we'll do is we'll go through settings and how to set it up for you and for best practices in streaming. And I'm going to do that all at once so that if you want to return to it, you can just return to the copy of this video and watch the last 5 minutes of it or whatever when you're setting up your own OBS. So any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. Okay. So let's go back to screen sharing and I'm going to take you through OBS settings. One thing first. You can record with OBS too, which is really nice. I find it to be an easy, quick way to record. So sometimes I'll record these videos and then you can run them live later. The other thing I should have said is you can add anything to a scene. So look at this. I can add a video. And I think I've still got it in here somewhere. Oh, so this is not actually, I thought this was going to be candle lighting. I'm clicking transform, rotate. And right, this was made with a cell phone video, so it's going to be the wrong size, so I'm resizing it. Or you could do things like, I don't really need some of that space up there, so I'll make Karen bigger. So her head takes up more space and just like center her. And then I could put a text box over here, right? She was counting the Omer, so I'll put the blessing over here. But my point of this is while you're leading services, where did that go? I lost it, sorry. You can go from having a logo with no sound input, no one can hear you, to jumping into doing this. And this would normally have a camera in the background that you'd be seeing the live. To then flipping to, where did candles go? Then you could turn on a video and then you could go back to the live stream here. So you can integrate recorded content into a scene on video. So for instance, can you have music running slides? Absolutely, Paula, you can put any content you want. So you can integrate all of those into individual scenes. So for instance, we haven't done it yet, but one thing we're going to try doing at CRC where we've got 5 rabbis is we're going to do a service where it'll probably be Karen and I will be leading services here, but then maybe Jim Goodman, one of our rabbis, will have recorded a Torah reading video. And then I just flip to that scene that's set up to show that video, it plays it. And then I could flip to another scene that's a video of Rabbi Susan Talvi having recorded the teaching, and it plays that. And then I flip to the next scene, which is Misha Berach, which is live back at our house with that webcam. So it's quite powerful in terms of integrating different pieces. The way I've been using it so far is pretty limited. On Friday nights, I've been asking one of our musicians to record candle lighting. She's been at CRC at our congregation for, I don't know, 30 years. So it just means a lot to a lot of people. And she records a candle lighting. So we do introductions, we do a couple songs, and when we're ready for candle lighting, I just play that scene and then I switch back to us live. Okay, how do you integrate remote live feeds is Mike's question. So how could you use OBS to have multiple people in multiple places? I don't know the answer to that yet. I've been using pre-recorded videos for other people. I assume there's a way to do multiple people in multiple locations, but I haven't gotten there. Whenever I get there, I'll do another webinar on that. Keep playing each other pre-recorded. Maybe you can make our actual presence unnecessary. Yeah, that's the goal. We just record enough and we can take off the rest of the year. Okay, we have a question. Hebrew, I've been having trouble getting it to show correctly. So the things that I've been doing for best practices with Hebrew, let me show you here. First of all, no punctuation. Punctuation messes with Hebrew terribly. Get rid of it in here, all commas and periods. And then set up your lines and go over and make sure you are setting the alignment to right. Those are the things that I have found that are helpful with Hebrew. The other thing is sometimes I'll pop in the Hebrew and it will look terrible or won't be Hebrew. It'll be fake fonts or fake images. Just make sure you choose a font that's a standard font like Arial or something else, because it will pull in the Hebrew through Unicode. Okay. Any other questions on this before we go through settings? Are you personally running OBS and leading at the same time? I can see that that would be a lot going on at once. Yes, so I have been. It gets easier pretty quickly because when you're doing it live, keep in mind, here's what I'm paying attention to. Over here on the right is going to be a chat that's going to pull anything that anyone is saying on the Facebook feed or on the YouTube feed. It pulls it all into one. In fact, if anyone was saying something right now, because we're live, I think it would pull it in on that Facebook feed. And then over here, all you're going to be paying attention to is switching to the next scene. And in that sense, it's no different than saying we now turn to page 32 for whatever, and we now turn to page whatever for whatever. If you have an external mouse, it can be a little helpful, but you know, pretty quickly, it's not so hard because all you're doing is flipping the scenes. And then you will run into spots where like you're in a different place than you had imagined you were going to be, and the text is over your head, and it's easy enough just to click and drag the text to where you need it to be. Okay, any other questions before we go through setting up OBS, the settings? Okay. Okay, so, oh, I had started to say this before and we got another question. Recording. Start recording here is great. However, OBS records into a proprietary format that doesn't play nice with everything. So they have something called Remux. You go to File and then Remux Recordings, where you drop in the first recording that it took, the MKV recording, and it just turns it into what's called an MP4, which will play nicely with other things. So for instance, Adobe Premiere Pro won't use MKV files, but it will use MP4 files. So this just converts it within there. I see that there's a chat. Let me look at that before I go on. Tech requirements. Yep, that's what we're going to talk about right now, Paula. Okay, so settings within OBS. Let's start with the general settings. Tech requirements for this are that you need a PC or a Mac, and you probably need a PC or a Mac that's no more than 3 or so years old. If you have some amount of budget, what you want to buy is you want to buy a gaming laptop that has a separate NVIDIA GPU. I'm going to just go ahead and write that in here. If you have a budget of about $1,000 to buy this, it makes a big difference. It just means you run into no issues. You want a gaming laptop with NVIDIA GPU. I just got an Asus TUF A15, and it was exactly $1,000 on Amazon. And it will run laps around anything you want it to do with this. I don't play video games, but my friends who play video games are very jealous of it too. And it's got this crazy like keyboard that changes color. Okay, so back to OBS settings. Most of these default settings you can leave as is. The one thing that I like to do is I like to click the option to show confirmation dialog when starting streams. I want an extra button that I click before I go live. I don't want to just like accidentally have one button that all of a sudden I'm live. Okay, here's the things where you need to set. Stream. This is where you connect it with whatever service you want to stream to. So for most of you, the answer will probably be, by Alyssa, this will be available later as a Facebook video on my Facebook, Daniel Bogard. Friend me if we're not friended, and you can watch this piece for the settings. So you can see all the different options you can stream to. If you're going to stream to one thing, we stream to Restream, which sends it out to everything else. And then it'll give you the other options and signing in and all of that, depending on what service you're using. So that will be straightforward. Output. Okay. You want to switch this to advanced. And then I'm going to take you through exactly what you want to do. Okay. You want to run a speedtest@speedtest.net. And if you don't have at least 10 megabits of upload speed, you want to call your internet company and you want to get that fixed. If you're streaming at home, you need at least 10. If you can get 20 or 40 or more, that's better. Let's also talk, I should have mentioned this earlier for best practices. You should plug in directly with your Ethernet. Don't do this on Wi-Fi if you're streaming. Plug in directly. It just eliminates a whole set of problems. I'm plugged in right now. Makes a huge difference. Okay, so back to our NVIDIA at this output setting. We've switched this from simple to advanced. And I'm going to take you through how you want to set this up. For encoder, if you have a separate GPU, right? I said a minute ago you want to get an NVIDIA GPU laptop, then this is important. You want to select that under your encoder. That means that your graphics card is going to be doing the work of the stream rather than your computer itself, which can leave the computer itself, the CPU itself, and able to do all sorts of other things. You do not want to enforce streaming service encoder settings. You don't want to rescale output. We'll talk about that in a minute. Don't mess with rate control. Bit rate is important. This should be no higher than 80% of your upload speed. So if you have a 10 megabit upload speed when you did your speed test, this can be an 8. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. But if you only came back at 4 megabits per second, this needs to be, you know, a 3.5 or whatever. Facebook, and for most of the other services we're going to do, really needs at least 4,000 as your bit rate. This is just the amount of data that you're sending at once. Anything less than that's going to be a pretty poor quality, and you're going to run into issues. Okay, this next one is the reason we switched from simple to advanced, and will solve just tons and tons of problems, and you never have to think of it again. Set your keyframe interval to 2. This has to do with like, I don't really even understand it. It has to do with some form of communication in the stream, but leave it at 2 and it will solve tons of your issues in advance. So just do that. Your profile, you want to switch this to main, and I don't touch anything else here. Okay, again, this is all going to be set the same regardless of the quality of your computer, except for this encoder. The encoder should be set at X264 unless you have a GPU, an NVIDIA GPU, and then you can set it to that. And again, that's the reason you want to get one with an NVIDIA GPU. Recording, this is pretty straightforward. Oh, look at that. It'll let you record it in MP4 format. Oh, yeah. So you don't have to do that remix thing. Great. Okay. So that's worth changing. Audio. To get a decent quality audio feed, this is important. You need a bit rate of at least 128. I think 160 is worth it. If you are having upload speed issues, if when you do your upload test, you're only getting 2 megabits or something, that's when you can cut this back to 128, but otherwise keep it at 160. And I don't touch replay buffer. Okay. That's the output section, meaning the section that sets how it's sending it out to the stream. Audio, you want to set your sample rate to 44.1. It probably is there already. And if you have a default audio that you use, like the box, you could set that here. There's nothing else that I touch here. Video is the last one that we're really going to look at. And this is the important one to think about and to decide, because when you build all of your scenes, you're going to build a scene based on the size of your stream. So the real decision for us is going to be, are we running at 1080 or 720? If you're running really old, really old hardware computer, you can reduce it. Oh no, it won't even let me reduce it smaller than 720. So if you are running an older computer, or if you have issues with your stream, most of us, hey, sorry, that's Yedidia who just showed up, right? It's really small. Sorry, saying hi to someone. If you're having trouble with your stream, if you are getting messages about things like dropped frames, if you're getting messages that your CPU is maxed out, if you're getting messages that you don't have enough bandwidth, if you're getting basically any message that you're running into trouble wherever, the first thing you should do is come and switch your ratios here, switch them both at the same time to 720, which will cut in half the resolution that you're using. It's still considered high def, though low high def. And none of us are probably doing super intense graphics anyways, and just cuts the burden on your CPU, on your GPU, on your internet, it just cuts the burden on everything immediately. So that's the first thing to do if you run into troubles. Again, I am running at 1080, so I'm going to leave it there. Okay, I'm turning off this. Those are the settings that I do. Questions? And now it can just be questions on anything. Nothing? Why this versus PowerPointing screen share? So you absolutely can have a PowerPoint that you screen share, right? That looks like what we just did. It's a different look. How is OBS different from a video editor such as Premiere or Final Cut? Mike is asking. That's the difference is OBS is made for live streaming. Premiere and Final Cut are made for producing recorded videos. So when I am putting together recorded videos, we did a Passover Seder with all 5 rabbis doing different pieces. I did that with Premiere, where I took them all together and I stitched it together as a movie, and I outputted it from Premiere. But then when I streamed it, I actually streamed it from OBS. I actually loaded it as a scene in OBS. I plugged my computer in with Ethernet, and I played it from my house out to the world as the live stream. Why not stream it from Zoom? Zoom has low audio quality, and you can't put up the oh, we were going to try to do that. That's what I was going to try to do, is what happens when we Rachel says her 11-year-old understands better than she does. Yeah, great. Yeah, lean on the 11-year-olds. Absolutely. Okay, let me screen share this. I'm going back to OBS. We're going to see what happens. So OBS has this feature called, oh man, I'm going to regret doing this later because I'm going to mess up all of my all these presets are going to be messed up later, but whatever. And oh, I should have done one though that has a, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to see how we could send OBS to Zoom. And I'm not sure if we can do this, but we're going to try. There's something called studio mode in OBS, which is what you can run if you are producing it and not actually on it yourself. I don't think anyone would want to do this if they were on it themselves. And once we are in studio mode, and sorry, this is going to take me a minute because I've never done this before and I don't know if it's possible. So we're going to discover that. There's a way, where is it? Where is it? There's a way to create this where it sends it out as its own video. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Give me one more second of looking, and then I'm going to abandon this quest. Yeah, I'm using one computer, but 2 cameras. The one in OBS right now, the one I'm waving at, is the one that's built in. Maybe I need to record. Nope. Controls, nope. There is a way that this outputs. to a full screen image, full screen window. There it is. I right clicked on it. Full screen projector. Actually, I think I'm going to do a window. No, full screen, I guess. So I'm right clicking on this and I'm going to full screen projector. I'm choosing it. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to stop the share. And what I'm going to do is within Zoom, I don't know if this is going to work. This is my theory though. Within Zoom, I'm going to share the full screen projector. And then I'm going to go back to OBS. Someone tell me, are you seeing right now? Tell me what you're seeing, because I don't see what
You're
you're seeing.
seeing the two screens, like the OBS setup screen.
You're seeing the OBS setup screen. You're not seeing the full screen projector screen.
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Now we're
Now
seeing
you-
the projector screen.
Now you're seeing the projector screen, but let me try. Maybe if instead I do, okay, I'm gonna try, instead of full screen projector, I'm trying a windowed projector, which will open up its own window, and let's see if Zoom likes that better. Share to windowed projector. And I would share computer sound, I think. I'm not gonna do that right now. Okay, what do you see?
The window projected that you want to show, well, no, not now.
No. Okay. Oh, well, yeah. So it doesn't really work to project from Zoom to, or from OBS to Zoom. It's not made for that. It's, in fact, yeah. Now you could pull from Zoom to OBS. It's a little complicated. Find a guide online and follow it step by step. But you could have, for instance, an OBS scene. Let me just explain this conceptually by looking at it. I'm going away from the studio mode and back to standard mode. So you could add a source here that was Zoom. So you could create like a box right here, the size of one of these text boxes, that was the output from a Zoom meeting. So you totally could do that within OBS if you wanted to. And that's I don't know why you would do that, but that's something that is the reason to use OBS, which is that OBS, anything you want to put on top of your streams or include in your streams, from recorded video to recorded music to overlays to pictures that are overlays to text to like whatever it is, it's simple. You set them up as scenes, and then when you're running it live, you just go from scene to scene to scene. Okay, any last questions? Okay. Shabbat shalom, everyone.